Hello, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us this time around, Jonathan Louis, sports writer for The Guardian, and the Mirror's chief football writer, John Cross. Welcome to you both, gents. Let's quickly run you through the back pages before we chat. We'll start with The Guardian, who reflect on a very busy night of European football. That leads their back page after mixed results for British sides. They also focus on the Premier League, where the chief executive, Richard Masters, defends the big summer transfer spend. They also cover proposals for cross-country to be included at the, get this, Winter Olympics. I am not kidding. In the Telegraph, they also cover Nottingham Forest's defeat, which has the fans at the City Ground singing "You're Getting Sacked in the Morning" to their own manager, Ange Postecoglou. In the Times, they also focus on Forest's defeat. They also carry news that fans might be allowed to watch the late World Cup games at the pub until 1 a.m. on a school night. Oh, my goodness me. Cheers to that, I guess. All of that to discuss, but let's start with the European football, shall we? As I say, mixed results for the British teams involved. We'll go to the back of The Guardian to start with this one. It was a big win, you could say, for not Nottingham Forest, for Aston Villa, wasn't it? Because they've been under pressure, Jonathan, and they were known for not scoring many goals to start this season. I wonder whether perhaps this win against Feyenoord could be a turning point for their season.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Certainly the luck that they needed, I think, or maybe the change in fortunes that they needed after a really, really slow start to the season. A lot of pressure on Unai Emery, a lot of pressure on the players. I think they found the pace of play, the slightly more measured pace of play in the Europa League, a bit more to their liking than what they're used to week in, week out in the Premier League. I think they've struggled to almost. I think they've struggled to deal with a lot of Premier League attacks, and playing in the Europa League has I think allowed them to, I think, get back to basics and do what they did best, do what they did so well last year. It's interesting that in the Dutch, a lot of the Dutch media tonight are saying that Feyenoord actually dominated that game, and Villa were actually quite lucky to come away with it. I think on terms of possession and chances, you could say Feyenoord had a decent night, but these are the sorts of results, like a big European night, a tough place to go, really tough place to go. Feyenoord. These are the sorts of results that I think are going to give Emery and his side a huge amount of confidence as they go into the forthcoming Premier League fixtures. Yeah,
and John, speaking of Emery, he celebrated both those goals with so much passion. It almost is as though I was watching a man that was relieved that they scored and got the result tonight.
Jess, I think it's been a really difficult few weeks, isn't it, for Unai Emery? I think straight out of the transfer window, when I think kind of they've been tested by sort of spending controls, whether that's kind of under UEFA's rules or the Premier League's, it hasn't, I don't think, been a particularly satisfying sort of kind of time in the transfer market. Difficult start of the season. And yet I do completely agree with Johnny there that basically the last two games we might have really seen a sort of kind of pick up and might be good for their confidence, because not just tonight, but I also think that was a big win against Fulham at the weekend. You go a goal behind and basically if your confidence is really, really low, then sometimes you don't come back. And I thought it was really encouraging the way they came back on Sunday, and I watched that game tonight, and they were really defiant. I actually think if the Dutch media are saying that, I'm wondering whether I watched the same game really, because I thought it was a really good, solid, disciplined away performance. And I did actually think then that sort of kind of Villa, on the balance of things, when they are more ruthless in front of goal, Villa actually had to make a last minute change in goal, but really defended ever so well. I couldn't really see them scoring. It's a lovely story, isn't it? Going back to sort of kind of the scene of '82 in Rotterdam where they won the European Cup, and then to do that tonight, I thought was a really, really positive result, and I think that should really, give lift off for their season.
Yeah, polar opposite result for Nottingham Forest, who lost 3-2 to FC Midtjylland. In the back of the Telegraph, big picture here that they focus on of the manager, Ange Postecoglou, hands on his knees, looking down at the ground, looking utterly dejected. Sacked in the morning is the headline. Fans turn on Postecoglou. Jonathan, have I missed something as to why these fans, just 6 games in, are already against their manager?
Yeah, I mean, can I shock you? I think Forest have played some in parts, have played some quite decent stuff in those 6 games. They were really good against Swansea until they, conceded 3 goals and lost 3-2 at the last minute. They have looked, really good in periods. I think the issue is that I think there are 2 major differences with Postecoglou here at Forest than what he was at Spurs. I think the fact that Forest already had a really defined style of play. They had a very popular manager in Nuno Espirito Santo who got them playing a very defined style of play. That worked for them. It almost got them in the Champions League last season. And the fact that he is now ripping this up, I think a lot of fans are thinking, why did this blueprint needed to be ripped up? And it feels a little bit like ego, frankly. It feels like a coach coming in and saying, forget everything that you did that was so successful for you last season. I know better, and I'm going to turn these players into something completely different. And the other factor is, I think the problems between Marinakis and Nuno were obviously quite well documented. I think Ange benefited at Spurs from being a bit of an outsider. He came in with, I think, a bit of an outsider's perspective. He sounded different. He looked different. His teams played quite a different style of football. And I think that kind of advantage, that edge that he had has gone now. I think a lot of Forest fans are thinking he's maybe got this job as a result of his relationship with Marinakis or for cultural reasons or whatever. And I don't think he gets that same goodwill or almost the honeymoon period that he got at Spurs. And results are going his way. I think the football has improved in so many respects. But when you're conceding goals from set pieces, when you look so open in the way that you didn't last season, I think, it's going to be hard to win over fans who weren't necessarily convinced that a change was necessary in the first place.
Yeah, Nuno was well loved amongst the Forest fans. That's clear to see. John, in the run-up to this, Postecoglou was saying that he has to earn the love and the trust of his supporters. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. Are you surprised by their reaction to him?
I'm surprised by that 6 games in, you're getting sacked in the morning. I think that's pretty extreme, actually, from your own set of fans. Listen, we've heard it many times before, but after that, I think that's a reaction to a manager who has given them a dream, basically, has done ever so well in Nuno, really taken them to the brink of the Champions League, but still got them into Europe. And, from being kind of perennial relegation strugglers, if you like, into a team that's into Europe, that's a hell of an achievement from Nuno. And I think you've gone from that to Postecoglou. I like Postecoglou. I bought into it. I kind of think he's entertaining and he wants to set out to play good football. But I have to say, here's a confession, by the way. I've got Villa on the big screen, and then I've kind of got Forest on my iPad. So I'm a complete football addict. I was watching both, and that 3rd goal, honestly, that Michelin scored, basically, is a shocker. I mean, they, on the break, they've just gone right through the heart of the Forest team from their own half. It's absolute car crash stuff defensively. It's a shocker, and really, it's bad. So you've got to kind of put that into perspective, I think, and so that's the issue for me. And I think they've gone from really enjoying their stuff to kind of this extreme. I don't know whether, I think that always the barometer is whether you lose the fans, whether you can win them back. That's the key. And I do completely agree with Johnny that maybe it's that kind of nepotism, almost favouritism that's got him the job in the first place, and that almost sets him at a negative kind of start, really. So I think it's a long way back for Postecoglou, but it's a bit early for those sort of chants. But these are the sort of setbacks. It's a terrible run that he's kind of mounted since he's taken over.
Yeah, totally. And it doesn't get any easier for Forest because next up, they're at Newcastle. Wow. We have to talk about Crystal Palace. Back at the Guardian, big picture of one of their goal scorers. Daniel Munoz gets Eagles flying in Europe. That's after a 2-0 win against Dynamo Kiev. What a result, Jonathan, and a record now. 19 games unbeaten in all competitions. They are flying, aren't they?
They are in dreamland at the moment. I think to be a Palace fan, especially I think after a lot of the turmoil and the turbulence of the summer, the way that their FA Cup win was almost sort of tarnished by what happened with John Textor and UEFA in the courts afterwards, the way the transfer window went, which I think Glasner was very clearly not happy with, the way they almost lost their captain Mark Gahey on the last day of the transfer window. I think that the fact that they've managed to channel a lot of that negativity during the summer into a real impressive focus in domestically and in Europe. I think I saw a stat that based on XG on based on underlying metrics, they deserve to be top of the Premier League right now based on their performances so far. And I think if you look at the way they're playing with freedom. They're playing with, I interviewed Will Hughes last season, and he said, we all know each other's position. I could play left wing back. The left wing back could play my position. We are all so familiar with the system that it just kind of clicks and it works. And I think we're seeing that. I still have long-term doubts over their ability to last the pace, just because of how little they recruited and reinforced in the summer. I wonder whether that's going to come back and bite them in the second half of the season. But at the moment, I mean, they're playing some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, thick and fast for Crystal Palace, being that they're, competing domestically and in Europe. Next match at Everton in just 3 days. John, how important then is it that they keep hold of the man that has led them to all this success in recent matches, Oliver Glasner, into the final year of his contract? We know talks are ongoing, but surely they've got to keep hold of him if this success is to continue.
Honestly, what a fantastic manager he has been for that football club. And look, I think let's be clear here. If he hadn't won the FA Cup, if he hadn't got into Europe, I wonder whether he'd still be at Selhurst Park now, because the big clubs were already circling there. The RB Leipzig's interest was well known. And you do have to wonder that basically whether he might have been tempted away. But that chance of being the manager who's already written himself into greatness by winning the first major trophy and then also leading them into a European campaign. And what an achievement from Glasner. I watched that game as well, by the way, and they were brilliantly set up. They were so well organised. Sorry, I'm addicted. But basically,
John, have you eaten this evening?
Just about, but obviously in front of the telly. And it was delicious. I've got a very understanding one. Honestly, it was so good to watch, because they never felt in danger. And they're so well structured. Even when Mateta goes off at half time, Eddie Nketiah, who obviously was the hero on Saturday, comes on, scores, and it's just such a good feeling. This sort of kind of Will Hughes had to go off and then sort of change that, and it didn't feel as if they were sort of damaged by that. What an achievement I think that Glasner has done. They are unbeaten. This is an amazing run, and obviously the summer helps, but they're unbeaten in the Premier League for nearly 6 months. It's astonishing, what he's done. Honestly, I do think he's going to be the hottest property. I mean, look, there's already talk, isn't there, about Man United? When they look, are they going to sort of, or are they going to go for him? Should they go for him? That's what happens when you do so well, and his career and management style is on an upward trajectory. There's no doubt about it. He's really going places. And look, I hope that's with Crystal Palace, because I think he's done a super job. Palace, well-run club. They had a difficult test in summer, but they've come through it. And my word, they've come through it and absolutely been fantastic on the other side.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And they play good football. They're entertaining to watch as well. Jonathan, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. John, you might want to go and say good evening to your family at this point. You've got a couple of minutes. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in The Sun. Sir Gareth Southgate is reportedly on Manchester United's wish list if they sack the current head coach Ruben Amorim. But would he want to go to Old Trafford? Hello again, you're watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and The Mirror's chief football writer, John Cross. We want to get straight to the back of The Sun. Reports that Sir Gareth Southgate has been linked with the Manchester United job if Ruben Amorim was to be sacked. Gatecrasher is the headline here. Samuel Luckhurst reporting that Sir Gareth Southgate fears he would not be given the time to transform Manchester United into a force again if he became their next manager. Jonathan, what do you make of this? I mean, we're talking about hypothetical, of course. Ruben Amorim is still in the job, says he still wants the job. Could Sir Gareth Southgate be the man to turn things around if he was to get an opportunity? And this whole idea of time doesn't exist in modern football management, does it?
It really doesn't. And I think the Southgate to United thing has always really baffled me. And partly, I know it's because, he's an acquaintance of Jim Ratcliffe. He knew Dan Ashworth when he was at United. But it has just seemed to me such a weird fit for a club of United's, where United are at the moment, and Southgate's career trajectory, where he's essentially done one job really, really, really well, because it was, he helped to set it up. He kind of he made the job what it is, and got a lot of time and got the space to do what he wanted. I think towards the end of his time at England, he talked about how the scrutiny and the pressure got to him a little bit. What does he think it's going to be like at Manchester United, where the scrutiny is not, every 6 weeks or 2 months, where there's an international break or when there's an international tournament, but it is essentially constant, where your private life and your personal life are not your own, where everything you say is basically twisted into a headline, often by very bad faith actors who are trying to make you look silly. I'm not sure he is a good enough coach for the higher end of the Premier League, which admittedly is not where United are competing now, but where they want to be. And I think these sorts of rumours, I'm still slightly baffled as to where they come from. I don't think United fans would want Southgate. I don't think Southgate could do with the hassle. He's talked in the past about how he probably doesn't want to do another coaching job, and I don't see who this works for. But it's a nice headline and it's a nice story. I just can't see how it happens.
Could this work for United, John? Could this work for Gareth Southgate? He's been out of work for a long time now. It's over a year, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The most surprising part of this story, I must say, was the second part when it says Southgate is open to discussing the job. Look, I just think he's made so many noises about not necessarily wanting to go back into coaching and management. I think his biggest quality and his best asset as England manager was setting a culture and basically making it fun and enjoyable and successful, relatively, to play for England again under his watch. And I think he, as England manager, didn't get and doesn't get, he probably will in about 10 years' time, the credit that he deserves from transforming, I think, the England national team, and particularly that culture. And that's what Man United need, I think, basically on and off the pitch, a cultural reset. So I can see a certain logic. But I'm really with Johnny. I just don't think it's a particularly good fit. I mean, Southgate, from sort of almost the bear pit of the England fans chucking beer into kind of, the expectation at Old Trafford. Come on, why would he need it? Why would he want to do it? I just think he's, from my mind, he made himself a bit of a national hero as England manager, and he got a knighthood. Why would he kind of put that on the line and cause himself so much stress and hassle to kind of take over at a club where he definitely would not get 4 years? I mean, I must say, my colleague Jeremy Cross was writing this morning saying that basically he definitely won't be taking Man United. So let's see, kind of thing. Okay. But I just can't see him taking it, really. I just don't think it would be very good for his health or his lifestyle or his future, really. I just think at the moment United's a poison chalice, and basically Southgate, I still think, is a brilliant manager on the back of what he did with England. Why would he need Manchester United? Makes no odds, makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, something for us to keep an eye on. But if Sir Gareth was to take that job, he'd have to keep an eye on the Manchester United midfield, in particular Bruno Fernandes. Let's go to the Daily Express. They've gone with the headline at the top of the page, deep fake. Ruben making Bruno miserable by playing him further back. Why is Amorim playing him in the centre of midfield, Jonathan, as a number 6, number 8, when he's been so good as a number 10 in recent seasons?
Well, I think the reason for that is that Amorim wants a little bit more pace and dynamism in that front three. That's why he brought Mbeumo in. That's why he brought Cunha in. That's why he brought Sesko in this summer. And personally, I think I worried about where Fernandes was going to fit in right from the start when Amorim came in. But his run of form, his incredible run of form over the second half of the season, I think it's almost kind of tied his hands a little bit, because you do have to find a place for this guy. He is so inspirational. He is talismanic. He is, your best set piece taker for another thing. And the fact that he has now had to be squeezed in that sort of double midfield pivot alongside Ugarte, that keeps Kobbie Mainoo out of the team. There's been lots of talk about he might have to move on to get a proper first team football, and I think it's just another symptom of how United have essentially been too reactive and not really thought through how the Amorim tactical blueprint is going to work in practice. And what it does eventually does to your most productive, your most talismanic, one of your most popular players, if there isn't a natural fit for him in the system. So United do look a little bit unbalanced now. They certainly look pretty shaky in defensive transition when Ugarte is basically have to do so much running for Fernandes. And he's a good enough player to make it work, Bruno. But I think United are losing something with him, and I'm not sure I necessarily buy that he's kind of disgruntled or upset, but it's very clear that it's not the best position for him right now.
Onto the Mirror back page, picture of the Liverpool goalkeeper, Alisson. Could be out for up to 6 weeks, John. That's a massive blow to a Liverpool team who are on the ropes a little bit, if you look by their last couple of results.
Yeah, back-to-back defeats, isn't it? At Crystal Palace and then Galatasaray in this midweek. A difficult away game at Chelsea. They have got a very good backup, but I think all said and done, that basically when you consider the game that Alisson had at Palace at Selhurst Park last Saturday, particularly in that first half, he is an absolutely phenomenal goalkeeper. He's a presence and his defence know him. And basically when you are going through a bad spell, when you are conceding goals and looking vulnerable defensively, the last thing you want is to lose your kind of really first choice established and very experienced and top quality goalkeeper. And that's the reality now we're seeing in this, because basically he's out for an estimated 6 weeks with a hamstring. It looked very odd when he kind of limped off and suffered that injury. That's what it is. And basically that's a huge blow for Liverpool. I still think Liverpool will roar back this season. I think they're so good. They've got a lot of players just trying to find their feet and big signings. Isak, I'm sure, get a ton of goals. I love Wirtz. I think he's a terrific player. And I just think that Liverpool will hit gear, but very early days and sort of kind of teething problems. And this Alisson blow will certainly not help.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one as well. Just to finish, Jonathan, I want to come to you on the back of The Guardian, turbocharged Olympics. And this story really piqued my interest. Cross-country running at the Winter Olympics. Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of Seb Coe's big idea for the future of the games. You have cross-country cycling, cross-country running and cyclocross are very clearly winter sports. But the interesting thing is he wants to move stuff like judo, which is an indoor sport. He wants to move that to the Winter Olympics as well. I mean, if you can move anything if anything indoors is a winter sport, then that's basically half of the sports of the Olympics. I guess the serious point is that the Summer Olympics has basically become so big, so bloated, that it is also almost become unmanageable. Logistically, but also it becomes unfair on a lot of athletes from a lot of sports who work really hard for 4 years and find that they are basically drowned out of the conversation because there are 35, 36 sports or whatever there are at the Model Olympics. So they've decided that they want to try and move some of them over, and I think it's a kind of a symptom of the way the modern Olympics has gone a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan, John, thank you very much. Jonathan Liew and John Cross, many thanks for your company. If you missed any of tonight's show, another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. It's also a podcast, as you know. Just download Back Pages on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.